Behind closed doors, they seemed like the perfect couple. Charming, attractive, and living a picture-perfect life. But beneath the surface, Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka hid a darkness that would shock the world. Together, they became one of the most infamous killer duos in Canadian history, leaving behind a trail of terror, deception, and unimaginable cruelty. This is the chilling story of how love turned lethal, and how two ordinary faces masked extraordinary evil. Paul Kenneth Bernardo was born August 27, 1964, also known as Paul Jason Teal, is a Canadian serial rapist and serial killer dubbed the Scarborough Rapist, the schoolgirl killer, and, together with his former wife Karla Homolka, one of the Ken and Barbie killers. He is known for initially committing a series of rapes in Scarborough, Ontario, a district of Toronto between 1987 and 1990, before committing 3 murders with Homolka. Among these victims was Karla's younger sister, Tammy Homolka. Paul was the third and youngest child of Kenneth Walter Bernardo and Marilyn Elizabeth Bernardo. Bernardo's father often sexually abused his older sister, Deborah, in front of other family members, and would eventually be charged with crimes involving voyeurism and pedophilia. Bernardo's mother often withdrew from her family due to depression and agoraphobia, eventually moving into the basement. Bernardo presented himself as being a happy and well-adjusted child despite his family's dysfunction, and was an active member of Scouts Canada. Beneath the charming facade, however, he gradually developed pyromaniac inclinations and dark sexual fantasies, one of which involved creating a virgin farm where he would breed virgin girls to rape. After a fight between his parents in 1981, Bernardo, then aged 16, was informed by his mother that he was the result of an extramarital affair and that Kenneth was not his biological father. Repulsed, Bernardo began to call his mother a slut and a whore. She reciprocated by calling him a bastard from hell. Later, after growing weary of his domineering behavior, Bernardo's first girlfriend left him for one of his friends. In retaliation, Bernardo set fire to all of her belongings to which he had access. Bernardo attended Sir Wilfrid Laurier Collegiate Institute and, in 1982, the University of Toronto Scarborough, UTSC, where another notorious Canadian murderer, Russell Williams, was coincidentally 2 academic years behind him. As his day job, Bernardo and his college friends practiced pickup techniques on young women they met in bars and were fairly successful. Bernardo delighted in humiliating his dates in public and engaging in aggressive anal intercourse in bed. His relationships became increasingly violent and unstable, and he threatened to kill his partners if they disclosed the abuse. In 1986, Bernardo was served with restraining orders by 2 women after he made obscene phone calls. In October 1987, Bernardo met Karla Homolka while she was visiting Scarborough to attend a pet store conference. The two shared an immediate attraction as Homolka encouraged Bernardo's sadistic sexual behavior. Karla Leanne Homolka, born May 4, 1970, also known as Karla Leanne Teal. Leanne Teal and Leanne Bordelais is a Canadian serial killer who acted as an accomplice to her husband, Paul Bernardo, taking active part in the rapes and murders of at least 3 minors in Ontario, including her own sister, Tammy Homolka, between 1990 and 1992. Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka's wedding day was a lavish affair, horse-drawn carriage and all. While their guests toasted to the happy couple's new life together, fishermen and boaters on Lake Gibson were making a gruesome discovery: human remains encased in cement. 10 pieces in all. Those remains belonged to 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffey, who had gone missing from the backyard of her family's home. She wasn't the first teenager to die at the hands of Paul and Karla, and she wouldn't be the last. Between 1987 and 1990, Bernardo committed increasingly vicious serial rapes in and around Scarborough. He attacked most of his victims after stalking them as they got off buses late in the evening. Tammy Homolka. By 1990, Bernardo had lost his job as an accountant and was smuggling cigarettes across the nearby Canada-United States border. He spent long periods of time with Homolka's family, who liked him and were unaware of his criminal activities. Although he was engaged to Carla, he had become obsessed with her younger sister Tammy, peering into her window and entering her room to masturbate while she slept. Carla helped Bernardo by breaking the windows in her sister's room, allowing him access. According to Bernardo's testimony at trial, Carla laced spaghetti sauce with crushed Valium she had stolen from her employer at an animal clinic. She served it to her sister, who soon lost consciousness. Bernardo then raped Tammy while Carla watched. After 1 minute, Tammy regained consciousness. 6 months before their 1991 wedding, Carla stole the anesthetic agent halothane from the clinic. On December 23, 1990, Carla and Bernardo administered sleeping pills to 15-year-old Tammy in a rum and eggnog cocktail. When Tammy lost consciousness, Carla and Bernardo undressed her, and Carla applied a halothane-soaked cloth to her sister's nose and mouth. Carla wanted to give Tammy's virginity to Bernardo for Christmas. According to her, Bernardo was disappointed that he was not Carla's first sex partner. With Tammy's parents sleeping upstairs, the couple videotaped themselves raping Tammy in the basement. Tammy began to vomit. They tried to revive her and called 911 after hiding evidence, dressing Tammy and moving her into her bedroom. A few hours later, Tammy was pronounced dead at St. Catherine's General Hospital without regaining consciousness. Despite being observed vacuuming and washing laundry in the middle of the night, and despite a chemical burn on Tammy's face, the regional municipality of Niagara coroner and Carla's family accepted the couple's version of events. The official cause of Tammy's death was ruled accidental, the result of choking on vomit after consumption of alcohol. After Tammy's death, Bernardo and Carla videotaped themselves engaging in sexual intercourse, with Carla wearing Tammy's clothing and pretending to be her. They moved out of the Homolka house to a rented bungalow in Port Dalhousie to allow Carla's parents to grieve. During Tammy's funeral, it was later reported that Bernardo was seen caressing her body in its open casket. Inside the casket, Bernardo and Carla placed a copy of their wedding invitation, which showed a photo of the couple grinning, along with a note. These items were discovered when Tammy's body was exhumed 3 years later and were removed at the request of the Homolka family. In 2001, the magazine Elm Street published an article in which it implied that forensic evidence proved that Tammy's death was not an accident and that her sister had deliberately administered an overdose of halothane. The publication described Carla as a malignant narcissist who was so incensed by her fiancé's attraction to her sister that she removed Tammy from his affections permanently. Leslie Mahaffey. Leslie Erin Mahaffey was born on July 5, 1976. Her brother Ryan was born some years later. Her father was an oceanographer for the Canadian Federal Fisheries and Oceans Department, and sometimes would be on assignments away from home for weeks at a time. Her mother was a teacher. As she grew older, Mahaffey began to spend periods of time away from the family home, but always phoned home during her absences and kept in touch with her younger brother Ryan, with whom she was very close. Shortly before her abduction, some friends had been killed in a car accident. The evening prior to her abduction, Leslie attended a memorial for one of the teens, as well as an informal get-together, and subsequently missed her Friday night curfew. Finding the door locked, Leslie traveled to a nearby plaza to use the pay telephone to ask a friend if she might spend the night at the friend's home, but was refused. Returning home, she crossed paths with Bernardo, who had been out looking into backyards, hoping to find a victim. Early in the morning on June 15, 1991, while detouring through Burlington to steal license plates, Bernardo came across 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffey. Bernardo left his car and approached Mahaffey, saying that he wanted to break into a neighbor's house. Unfazed, she asked if he had any cigarettes. When Bernardo led her to his car, he blindfolded her, forced her into the car, drove her to Port Dalhousie, and informed Homolka that they had a victim. Bernardo and Homolka videotaped themselves torturing and sexually abusing Mahaffey while they listened to pop music. At one point, Bernardo said, "You're doing a good job, Leslie, a damned good job," adding, "The next 2 hours are going to determine what I do to you. Right now, you're scoring perfect." On another segment of tape played at Bernardo's trial, the assault escalated. Mahaffey cried out in pain and begged Bernardo to stop. In the Crown description of the scene, he was sodomizing her while her hands were bound with twine. Mahaffey later told Bernardo that her blindfold seemed to be slipping, which signaled the possibility that she could identify her attackers if she lived. The following day, Bernardo claimed Homolka fed her a lethal dose of halcyon. Homolka claimed that Bernardo strangled her. They put Mahaffey's body in their basement the day before Homolka's family had dinner at the house. Following the dinner party, Bernardo and Homolka decided to dismember Mahaffey's body and encase each part of her remains in cement. Bernardo bought a dozen bags of cement at a hardware store the following day. He kept the receipts, which were evidence at his trial. After Bernardo cut apart the body using his grandfather's circular saw, the couple made a number of trips to dump the cement blocks in Lake Gibson, 18 kilometers, 11 mi, south of Port Dalhousie. At least one of the blocks weighed 90 kg, 200 pounds, and was beyond their ability to sink. It lay near the shore, where it was found on June 29, 1991, coincidentally on Bernardo and Homolka's wedding day. Mahaffey's orthodontic appliance was instrumental in identifying her. Several days before Homolka's release from prison in July 2005, Bernardo was interviewed by police and his lawyer, Tony Bryant. According to Bryant, Bernardo stated that he had always intended to free the girls he and Homolka had kidnapped. However, when Mahaffey's blindfold fell off, Homolka was concerned that Mahaffey would identify Bernardo and report the couple to the police. Bernardo claimed that Homolka planned to murder Mahaffey by injecting an air bubble into her bloodstream, triggering an air embolism. Kristen French. Kristen Dawn French, May 10, 1976, April 19, 1992, was a 15-year-old girl from St. Catharines, Ontario. She was the second daughter of Doug and Donna French. Her brother-in-law is a retired journalism instructor at Cambrian College. She was a member of a precision ice skating team which won several medals, and a member of the girls' rowing team at Holy Cross Catholic Secondary School. During the after-school hours of April 16, 1992, Bernardo and Homolka drove through St. Catharines to look for potential victims. Although students were still going home, the streets were generally empty. As they passed Holy Cross Secondary School, the couple spotted 15-year-old Kristen French walking home. After they pulled into the parking lot of nearby Grace Lutheran Church, Homolka got out of the car carrying a map, pretending to need assistance. When French looked at the map, Bernardo attacked from behind and forced her into the front seat of the car at knife point. From the back seat, Homolka subdued French by pulling her hair. After French failed to arrive home, her parents became convinced that she met with foul play and notified police. Within 24 hours, the Niagara Regional Police Service, NRP, assembled a team, searched French's after-school route, and found several witnesses who had seen the abduction from different locations. French's shoe, recovered from the parking lot, underscored the seriousness of the abduction. Over the Easter weekend, Bernardo and Homolka videotaped themselves torturing, raping, and sodomizing French, forcing her to drink large amounts of alcohol and submit to Bernardo. At his trial, Crown Prosecutor Ray Houlihan said that Bernardo always intended to kill French because she was never blindfolded and could identify her captors. The following day, Bernardo and Homolka murdered French before going to the Homolkas for Easter dinner. Homolka testified at her trial that Bernardo strangled French for 7 minutes while she watched. Bernardo claimed that Homolka beat French with a rubber mallet because she tried to escape, and French was strangled with a noose around her neck, which was secured to a hope chest. Homolka then went to fix her hair. French's nude body was found on April 30th, 1992, in a ditch in Burlington, about 45 minutes from St. Catherine's and a short distance from the cemetery where Mahaffey is buried. She had been washed and her hair was cut off. Although it was thought that the hair was removed as a trophy, Homolka testified that it was cut to impede identification. Bernardo was tried for the murders of French and Mahaffey in 1995, and his trial included detailed testimony from Homolka and videotapes of the rapes. Bernardo testified that the deaths were accidental, later claiming that Homolka was the actual killer. On September 1st, 1995, Bernardo was convicted of a number of offenses, including the 2 first-degree murders and 2 aggravated sexual assaults, and sentenced to life in prison without parole for at least 25 years. He was designated a dangerous offender, making him unlikely to ever be released. Homolka's plea bargain was criticized by many Canadians since Bernardo's first defense lawyer, Ken Murray, had withheld the videotapes exposing Homolka's culpability for 17 months. The videotapes were considered crucial evidence, and prosecutors said that they would never have agreed to the plea bargain if they had seen them. Murray was later acquitted of obstruction of justice and faced a disciplinary hearing by the Law Society of Upper Canada. Although Bernardo was kept in the segregation unit at Kingston Penitentiary for his own safety, he was attacked and harassed. He was punched in the face by another inmate when he returned from a shower in 1996. In June 1999, 5 convicts tried to storm his segregation range, and a riot squad used gas to disperse them. On February 21, 2006, the Toronto Star reported that Bernardo had admitted sexually assaulting at least 10 other women in attacks not previously attributed to him. Most were in 1986, a year before the spree attributed to the Scarborough rapist. Authorities suspected Bernardo in other crimes, including a string of rapes in Amherst, New York, and the drowning of Terry Anderson in St. Catherine's, but he has never acknowledged his involvement. His lawyer, Anthony G. Bryant, reportedly forwarded the information to legal authorities in November 2005. In 2006, Bernardo gave a prison interview in which he claimed that he had reformed and would make a good parole candidate. He became eligible to petition a jury for early parole in 2008 under the Faint Hope Clause, since he committed multiple murders before the 1997 Criminal Code Amendment, but did not do so. In 2015, Bernardo applied for day parole in Toronto. According to the victim's lawyer, Tim Danson, it is unlikely that Bernardo will ever be released in any capacity due to his dangerous offender status. In September 2013, Bernardo was transferred to Millhaven Institution in Bath, where he was reportedly segregated from other inmates. In November 2015, Bernardo self-published A Mad World Order, a violent, fictional, 631-page ebook on Amazon. By November 15th, the book was reportedly an Amazon bestseller, but was removed from the website due to a public outcry. In October 2018, Bernardo had been set to go to trial for possession of a shank weapon while incarcerated. However, the prosecution dropped the charges when they determined that there was no reasonable probability of conviction. Bernardo became eligible for parole in February 2018. On October 17th of that year, he was denied day and full parole by the Parole Board of Canada. His next parole hearing took place on June 22, 2021. It took only 1 hour of deliberation by the presiding judge, for his application to be turned down. In May 2023, after spending a decade at Millhaven Institution, Bernardo was transferred to La Macasa Institution, a medium-security facility in Quebec, where he will continue to serve his indeterminate sentence. The transfer caused controversy, and initially the reason for the transfer was not provided to the public. Bernardo had successfully applied to be moved there. In light of the scandal and dismay raised by the transfer, on June 5, 2023, Correctional Service Canada announced it was to review the decision, and on July 20th, Commissioner Anne Kelly explained in a 30-minute press conference that the review board found the transfer to be sound in view of the passage of Bill C-83, an act to amend the Corrections and Conditional Release Act and another act. On July 26, 2023, Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino was dropped from cabinet and replaced by Dominic LeBlanc during a cabinet shuffle with the media, attributing his demotion to the controversy around the Bernardo transfer. The day after LeBlanc was installed, the Globe and Mail wrote an article covering his opinion that the legislation was inconsequential, while Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the opposition, said that this was an example of the soft-on-crime policies of the Trudeau government. On March 6, 2024, MP Frank Caputo learnt there was an inmate hockey rink on the premises of La Macasa. Caputo said, "The cherry on top was seeing this beautiful gymnasium, and next to that is a weight room, much nicer than 95% of Canadians have access to." Bernardo's next parole hearing was on November 26, 2024. His victims' families were initially barred from attending the hearing in person because of safety concerns, but that decision was reversed by the parole board. Bernardo was denied parole for a third time by the Parole Board of Canada. Homolka attracted worldwide media attention when a controversial plea bargain with Ontario prosecutors meant she was only convicted of manslaughter and served only 12 years for the torture, rapes, and murders of the other victims, Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French. Homolka testified against Bernardo, who was convicted of the Mahaffey-French murders and received life imprisonment and a dangerous offender designation. Homolka's plea bargain came about after she told investigators that she had been Bernardo's unwilling accomplice as a result of domestic violence. However, videotapes of the crimes surfaced after the plea bargain and before Bernardo's trial, which showed that Homolka had been a more active participant than she had originally claimed, including in the rape and death of her sister. As a result, the plea bargain that she had struck with prosecutors was dubbed in the Canadian press the deal with the devil. Public outrage about the deal continued until Homolka's high-profile release from prison in 2005. Following her release, Homolka settled in Quebec, where she married a brother of her lawyer. She briefly lived in the Antilles and Guadeloupe, but by 2014 had returned to Quebec. Bernardo scored 35 out of 40 on the psychopathy checklist, a psychological assessment tool used to assess the presence of psychopathy in individuals. This is classified as clinical psychopathy. Homolka, by contrast, scored 5 out of 40. The reports furthermore stated that he met the criteria for narcissistic personality disorder and met the requirement for a diagnosis of psychopathy, meaning he was thereby more likely to repeat violent sexual offending. The story of Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka remains one of the darkest chapters in Canadian history. A tale not just of crime, but of manipulation, obsession, and betrayal. While Bernardo continues to serve a life sentence, Karla has lived a controversial life beyond prison walls, leaving many to wonder whether true justice was ever served. Their crimes still haunt the families of their victims, and the chilling legacy of the Ken and Barbie killers serves as a reminder of how evil can hide behind a picture-perfect mask.
bottle of liquid anesthetic. Today, a sense of how dangerous that drug is in the hands of amateurs, from Dr. Raymond Matthews. The anesthetist had already seen the video of Paul and Carla apparently assaulting Tammy Homolka, Christmas Eve 1990. He testified a cloth was being held over her face, her neck was twisted, her chin was close to her chest. According to the doctor, that probably made it difficult for her to breathe. The anesthetic, 4 times more potent than ether, a common anesthetic, made her vomit into her lungs. Earlier, a police constable testified he saw red marks on Tammy's face. At the time, they were written off as acid burns from her vomit. Police ruled Tammy died from natural causes. But Matthews testified neither vomit nor the anesthetic could have caused the burns. To make his point, he took a bottle of the anesthetic, poured it onto his hands, and put it on his face as if it were aftershave. Matthews said some other chemical on the
Carla Homolka served 12 years in prison for manslaughter after a plea deal for testifying against her ex-husband Paul Bernardo. She was released from prison in 2005. Since then, she's kept a low profile, going by the name Leanne Teal. And for the past 2 years, she has reportedly lived in this suburb south of Montreal with her husband and their 3 children.
To hear that a person like that is here, it's...
Many neighbors just learned that through media reports this week.
I was totally shocked. She's here? Oh my God. Get out of here.
Homolka's children go to school here, and some parents in the area are angry they didn't know.
It makes you uncomfortable, it's not like she was accused of, fraud or something. It's a pretty heinous crime.
The school board sent a letter to parents saying all children have the right to privacy and an obligation to be in school.
I don't know what to think. Where does she go? What should she do?
When Homolka was released, she had served her full sentence. She was free to start a new life and choose where she wanted to live.
Like it or not, she has the right to live her life like any other person without being subject to threats and harassment.
Homolka knew that was something she could face when she gave this interview to Radio-Canada after her release.
Je veux pas que le monde pense que je suis quelqu'un de dangereuse qui vont faire quelque chose à leurs enfants.
Police won't confirm Homolka lives here, but say it's their duty to ensure quality of life for all citizens in compliance with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
And if you want more true crime stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications.